So I have a thought for you this morning. I'm sitting in my favorite chair where I love to drink my coffee and look out my window in the morning and think and read and write. And I was messaging with a friend, and we were talking about a new book we're reading called Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And she has the famous quote about our fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we're powerful beyond measure. And so I was curious to know about this person with this famous quote and started reading her book, and it's really powerful. But I wanted to connect it with a recent experience that I had, and that was out running, which seems to be where I find the Spirit speaking to me. And when I'm with nature and when I have closed out the distractions of life, and where I just breathe in the oxygen from the trees all around me and find myself having all kinds of unique thoughts. And so this one day I was running and I came across some deer, and they were very close to me. And so I decided to stop because they were so close. I wanted to see what would happen. And so I stop in the middle of the trail, and I'm just sitting here looking at these deer, and there was two. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, why are they not moving? Why are they letting me just stay this close to them? And I just stood there for the longest, just looking at them. And then I just thought, this is so interesting. They look really small. Where is their mother? Like, why is their mother not here with them? And then I go to start running again after I had observed them for a little bit, and I turn, and there was Mama. She was actually behind me on the other side of the trail, and she's watching very closely, and she has, her foot raised and her ears perked, and she's just like watching to see, are her babies safe? And I thought it was so interesting because the babies were just like totally carefree, just sitting there eating like I was nothing. And then behind me was Mom, who was watching, and she was ready at any moment to protect those babies. Well, again, these deer, they had just been roaming all through that area. So on another run, a few days later, I came across the family again, but this time Mama was right in front. And I remember her standing there looking standing still. And as I came around this curve, I just kind of looked at her in her eyes and just kept going, but I wanted to see how she would respond. And what I saw was an animal completely terrified, just trying to survive, right? So men were like their predator, right? We are the ones that come after them. And you saw her in this stance, ready to move, ready to retreat, just totally looking at me like, are you going to hurt me? Are you going to hurt me? Are you going to hurt me? And even that day when I came across the babies, it's interesting because the babies were carefree, but Mom on the other side was ready to protect and to get her babies out of there. So one of the things that I'm learning in this book is about how actually we were created for love and we learn fear. And I think a lot of us, we know that in some way or another. But as I saw in those deer, the babies didn't know fear yet, but Mom did. And when I saw her eyes looking at me so terrified, I remember thinking to myself, so many of us live just like that. Like, we come in contact with other humans and we're just like, are you gonna hurt me? Are you gonna hurt me? Please don't hurt me. And our disposition towards others is constantly one of defense. It's constantly one of just trying to survive and living in that kind of like primal level of living, which is simply fight or flight, where we're simply trying to defend ourselves, where we feel like we have to fight to survive, where we feel like we have to fight for our worth, where we feel like we have to fight for position, for power, where everything is about survival. But there's actually a level of living, there's actually a place of living where you get out of those primal reactions, where you get out of literally what's called like the reptile part of your brain, the animal instinct part of your brain, and where you can live beyond fear, where you can live from an internal core of love, which is God is love, right? So believing that that spirit of God lives inside of you, that you can live out of that core. That's my thought for us today. When you approach the world, are you approaching the world like a little deer, terrified? Terrified that someone's going to hurt you, with your shields up, ready to fight? Or are you approaching the world with a sense of awe and wonder and curiosity and love?